Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. Yes, India at 75, and we are celebrating Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. And here, right now, we are doing MECAT preparation, Media and Entertainment Creative Aptitude Test with TGC. Today, we are doing a workshop on role of T-Press in graphic design with our distinguished guest, Mr. Ravi Ranjan Dutt ji. He has almost 22 years of proven experience in visual design, and currently he is a founder and director at TGC Animation and Multimedia. As an education entrepreneur, he has successfully started and run various training ventures in IT, digital media, and photography. In graphic design, in particular, he has years of teaching experience in pre-press, typography, color theory, and business of design, etc. So, without wasting much of your time, let's quickly have Mr. Ravi Ranjan sir here. So, you're most welcome.
Thank you very much, Pooja. Thanks for the introduction. So, can we start with the session?
Yes, sir. I'll request if you can turn off your video, please.
Okay.
So good to see you, sir.
All right. Thank you very much.
The session is over to you, sir. I have given the rights.
Okay, nice. So, we'll be starting with something called a pre-press. As we all know about what graphic design is, and we are all one of the other ways inclined towards graphic design, considering that because of the charm of the design and illustrations, and they're like various visual elements that always attracts us towards the design. One of the things that we may not be able to ponder it, or it looks a little boring at times, is like, what is the future of the design? Actually, the future of the design can be with the advent of the various kinds of media outputs, like electronic or web, or like so many other things out there. But if you consider, like, you want to be a graphic designer with respect to creating designs or artworks, especially for the press, namely brochures or catalogs, or like packaging design, or any kind of an exhibition design, or anything that goes to the print, one has to understand that the design might be starting from their desktop or a laptop or the device on which they create a design, but that may not soon be ending it over there. It is going for the print, and like once it goes to the print, it cannot be just about publishing it like a Control-P command, because let's consider a piece of a newspaper, let's say. So it's such a tabloid, and if you see some good packaging materials, so the print has to be pasted upon duplex material or various kinds of paper in the thicknesses and all. So unless you're not able to consider your design, what would be the output like, it will be very difficult to design it onto your desktop. Or even if you try doing it onto your desktop, you must, and if you're not aware, you can tend to make certain kind of mistakes. And those mistakes may be like your size is not right, your cutting is not happening at the right places, your folding is actually maybe erroneous. There could be other kind of instances, maybe like the colors are not being printed the way they're being, you are finding them on screen. And there could be so many things that might probably happen with respect to maybe like the font might be changing at the time of the print because they're not being post-scripted. And there could be other various kinds of a problem you might lead to, which you may be only astonished and surprised, I mean, at certain point of a time. And the basic difference between a print design and any other forms of design is like, for example, let's understand from a from a very frank perspective that you've been a instead of being a graphic designer, you were a web designer and you made a mistake. You have written something wrong, and that mistake has been done. So maybe like your client might be calling you and saying that you have written this particular spelling as a wrong. So you may probably ask him like, just for a wait for a second and I correct it, and you might ask him to refresh the page and your problem is solved. And that could be the other way around as well. But let's consider what will happen in the print. In the print, if you make a mistake, like a small spelling mistake, and a job goes to a print, and now it is being printed, now that problem is forever. That is a permanent problem. And that permanent problem is not just about, it cannot be fixed. It was not just about the design. At the end of the day, you probably have to incur a lot of cost because you bought a lot of paper. And that paper nowadays is very expensive. So are your printing charges, your plate making charges, your whole logistic in order to bring the paper from paper vendor to the press and press to the client place. So there could be, I mean, sleuth of the wastage might be leading. And in case the worst would be like if you got like 5,000 copies of the design printed, and you just presume like what would be the amount of your small error, because the client might be rejecting it. Any good company will reject it. Any corporate company will reject it. So the losses are heavy. So we cannot. We should be very particular about the pre-press aspects of the design. So the pre-press aspects is like going to an airport and you being checked in at different point of time, right at time with the entry, your passport or your document being checked, and then you make an entry, and then you have to get your flying pass, and then you probably have to go to the security. So it's just the same way. The pre-press is about a complete pre-flighting measure. The pre-flighting measure has to be done at different point of a time in order to avoid those mistakes which can lead to this costage and these losses. So one has to understand, even if you are being a graphic designer, you should be very particular about your pre-press measure, your pre-flighting measures are in place. You are not making any mistakes. Even if the mistakes are coming due to various reasons, it might be about the device, it might be with respect to the kind of a printer which is not calibrated. So you can actually check it at different point of time. So I'll start with something. I'll try to make this whole discussion a little interesting. I wish if there are more participants, they can come and can ask me questions. I'll be very happy. I'd be glad to answer those questions. So let's start with something, what could be the things like. So if I to start, so we'll start like, there could be few questions. I mean, every time somebody comes in to know about pre-press, what the hell it is, my color has changed. You would like to know what this overprinting concept is. Somebody says, I want to get spot color, and you don't know about what is the spot colors are. We know only the colors, but what is this spot colors? If somebody asks you to do a trapping, you'll be surprised, like, what is he asking it for? There's nothing to do with the visual elements of creating anything in design in particular. So you probably will ask what you are talking about the trapping. In the real world, not trapping is something very different. And you've been discussing about the RGB and CMYK. So there's an endless debate. You probably like to know what is this RGB for where, what the CMYK, and why we should always be managing with a CMYK, and our explanation should be to the point in order to understand that. And I design, now you're saying can't print. So probably a lot of people surprised that I've designed something and the printer will ask, no, it is not printable. And they might be thinking, why is it not printable? My design looks good onto the print, the screen. So you should be knowing it. So, and at the end of the day, you might be saying, I'm a designer, so it's not my job. It is your job. It is a job of a designer to understand the nitty-gritty of the pre-press in order to make a good success into the field of the design also. You cannot grow unless you're not learning your pre-press. Your growth perspective will always be very, very limited, and it cannot go beyond an extent. So the pre-press is necessary. You cannot, it's some kind of a necessary evil to understand that it is. And in order to succeed, that you should be knowing about. So what in the small presentation that we're doing today, we might be knowing about a bit of a pre-press overview, what this pre-press is all about. We'll be knowing about what are these scanning methodologies. And so when we say the scanning methodologies, could be about input procedures, because there could be two ways one can get the picture into the system, either by scanning or through capturing it through the digital camera or something. You should remember what are those output methods, how to get the job print files making, how to make the print files, and what could be the Q factors, like what are the quality factors are there in order to consider them and make them count. So where comes the pre-press? You should be understanding at what stage of design the role of the pre-press comes in place. So as we could see, once we working on applications like Adobe Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign, CorelDRAW, and there could be other few, we should be knowing that the graphic design starts from creating a design, maybe like illustrations, you make it from the illustrations of imaging layout, and then finally design is created, then comes the role of the pre-press and then the press. So the pre-press is actually an intermediate or maybe the transition phase between the design to the press. So from design to press, the pre-press comes in. So one must understand where the pre-press lies. The pre-press lies between to design to the press. It's just about creating or developing your print files and be preparing for the final outcome of the job in your hand. So what does it include? The pre-press includes input, output, and pre-flight. Input is about bringing the external elements into your design. External elements like your pictures, you probably have to bring it from the scanning or a digital camera. Capturing, you may get it from the Google images. You might be assuming that could be one of the ways, but at the end of the day, those images also in the Google has came from somewhere. So input is all about bringing your picture into the computer for the very first time before you replicating them all over the medium. So that's the first phase of it. There's the origin point, and the first time your image comes to your system, the external picture comes to your system. And the second thing is about output. So what is between the input and output is your design. So whatever you design in between comes in the design, which is not visible here. So between the lines, you need to understand that there is something called design. So output is about after the design. You need to press, you have to make the job ready. If once you make anything job ready, you have to do the output done. And pre-flighting is about cross-checking. Whatever you're doing, whatever the things that you have done during the phase of the design, you need to cross-check it. At times, you're a manager and you're not directly designing, but your subordinates are designing, your juniors are designing. You need to check that they're doing, that the mistake will not cost the company huge amounts of losses or anything. So you need to pre-flight. The pre-flight might be called as a quality factor, or there's the ultimate factor to decide the job is going finally for the press, because most of the presses are not in-house. You have to send the job to the third party in order to get that print. So the pre-flight measure has to be taken care. So let's talk about the scanners for the first of all. I'm talking about the input. So the input will start with the scanner. For that matter, we can even discuss, we can assume that there's a digital camera. So normally they're like flatbed and drum. But the drum scanners are nowadays being extincted like the dinosaurs. So they are no more there. The drum scanner used to be there at some point of time. They used to be called as the primary source of bringing the high-end images. So any agency, any advertising agency, any kind of a newspaper group, they used to scan pictures in order to bring the best resolution version to the dumb scanner. But nowadays, the flatbed scanners are equally good, And even the scanners, the whole concept of the scanner is also getting a little outdated with the advent of the digital camera and all. But still, we have to use a flatbed scanner, because nowadays what is happening that you directly take a picture into your system. So that whole system, the process of the bypass now to bring in any outside thing. But still, if you scan anything from print to your computers, and you need to scan it. There's no other way. You can take a picture from a mobile camera or maybe from a digital camera, but this could be there. But of course, this possibility has now been reduced with the good digital camera in the market. In order to understand what are those deciding factors to know, like what are the quality factors in order to buy a camera, a scanner. There's a low end D, because D means optical density. So even if you're buying a good digital camera, their optical density, what it matters is simply the same fundamental applies into the scanners as well. There could be the color mode. The color mode is like from what color mode are you scanning? We must understand there could be various kinds of output medium. Either your scanner or your digital camera will give you those, like how does it take pictures. A lot of low-end devices actually directly gets anything scanned or probably shooting into the RGBs. But there is always a procedure, like a good digital camera, or for that matter, a good flathead scanner will be taking pictures scanned or shoot through the raw mode. So you have an ability to modify. So it could be the professional ways. The CCD is something which is there into the device of a scanner, which actually there is a light. That light goes back and forth in order to print anything. So we must understand that the oversaturation not happen. So CCD actually matters a lot. And economy, in a sense, like the flatbed scanner might be starting probably $2,000 and that ends around like $50,000. That same thing has happened into the digital cameras as well. They start around like $20,000 and they can end up probably 4 to 5 lakhs. So based upon the economy, what could be the good feature, we must be considerate to them. These are some of the things like we normally see into the flatbed scanner, that there could be different kind of types. For example, the scanner that we could see into the picture right now into the slide is it's a transmissive scanner. Some of these scanners, most of the scanners that we buy in the market, though the low end, they might not be having this plate, this glass plate. They would be only the black or the white might be at this point of time. Means they could only scan the reflective material. They cannot get anything transmissive material. In order to get any of this transmissive, so light will pass on from the front to the back. So either they could be, instead of one scanner, it's like having a 2 scanner in one. So once you have the 2 scanners in a one, means that you can even actually get the transmissive material be scanned. So there could be other ways to do that. And I'm just skipping the drum scanners. I told you that they've been extended now. This is a good view in order to understand what is the procedure of anything which is being printed. So as you could see, like output worldwide. So you need to take an output, because you cannot control P and get a big piece of paper just like this guy actually holds in the hand. So there could be a whole lot of a procedure that's being taken care. Starts from the workstation. Workstation might be your machine. Then go to there is a software which actually converts your whole information into the binaries, and that process is called RIP RIP. The RIP stands for the raster image processor. The raster image processor means that it converts the visual data into the data which is being converted. So that data actually encrypts and decrypts again. And then there could be something called image setters. These are the image setters. Image setters actually gets the print onto the 4 separations of the colors like cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. The cyan and magenta and yellow blacks are actually the separations. These are called separations because the printing is being done into CMYKs. So the first we get a film and then we get the plate. But nowadays, in order to reduce your what do you call the generation losses, because you must understand whenever we get an output and if the procedure goes from one stage to another to the next, and before getting it the final thing in your hand, there's some kind of a generation gap, a generation loss may come. That could be about losing, or there could be more saturation, there could be less saturation, there could be a lot of issues that you might face. So nowadays, this whole third procedure is called ABSET is now being ruled out. Now this is no more there. So we actually take an output from 1 to 1, 2, and directly 5. So that's about from onto your four color films. So four color films goes to the plate setter. So the plate setters are the one. So you get a raster image processing, giving the direct output onto the plate setter. So the plate setters are what? The plate setters actually are getting your data being separated onto some plates, some aluminum kind of a plates. They are 4 in number, as long as your colors are cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. If you have some additional colors to print, then there could be more than 4 as well. So these colors are cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. So mostly this information now, as you could see, as the 6th number is a plate. So this is how the plate looks, and you might be asking which plate is it? So I can tell you that this is a magenta color plate, you know. So these plates now finally being installed onto your machines. What are these machines? This is called offset machine. Mostly these are offset machine. If you ask me that the printing is being done only through the offset machine, no, it is not. There could be various kind of devices like digital press. There could be rotogravure press, but the offset printing is always remains one of the most popular form of the printing. Most of the world's production material goes through the offset printing because that is being done on a paper, and it can only print on paper. It cannot print on anything else as such. So as you could see here that there are panel 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. We may call it like a 6-color machine. So 4 colors are your CMYK. There could be additional 2 colors that it can print upon. And this is a print machine. So you're getting this plate at 6 number. You'll be installing it to the machine, which is at 7. And machine, then, you know, what happens, there is a color. So this plate actually, you put in some kind of a drum, and then this press thing happens, and you're getting the final proof 8 number is coming in hand. So that goes through various kind of procedure, and this precision is very, very accurate. That you cannot get even from like you know, the digital press, where like no separations are happening. In the digital press, hardly any separations happens. You only get the final thing in your hand. But into the offset machines or any kind of a professional devices, one has to go through separating your colors into CMYK. Now, so as you could see here that what is happening now, if I have to summarize, if I have to summarize, I can tell you like anything that finally goes to the press. First of all, there's a design, then the design gets into the raster image processor, and then you get a plate out of it, and then, you know, it could be the plate be installed onto an offset machine, and then the machine actually runs. These machines are probably as big as might be a big room, or maybe like a joining of like 3 or 4 rooms together, and then this thing is happening. So, and all I can tell you, like, these are the big machines, and these big machines include swords. They can print any big paper. So there could be various sizes of these offset machines. They are not always of the same size. It depends upon the size of the paper that you want to print. They could be smaller in size, maybe like in 1925. So they can print 18 by 23, and they could be like big printing machines like 30 into 40. So they print a bigger paper at one time, and so a lot of packaging people probably go to the bigger machine. In case if you're printing any kind of a magazine or something, you probably can manage it from some smaller size machine. And although these smaller side machines are, they themselves are much bigger machines actually than we can think of. So do not compare them with the printer. They are the big setups and all. So you can even YouTube and see like how does that machine works and the offset machine, and you will see good example of it. So and so with that, how to make a print file. So every graphic designer has to make a print file, you know. So you need to use the right software. So you should be using the right software. If you ask me, like I'm working in Photoshop, and should I make you know, the print file from the Photoshop, then I would say no, you should not be making it. It's not advisable. Why it is not advisable? That you should not for example, if that is the artwork in your screen, and this artwork contains image and text, and as you could see here, there's a lot of CMYK and this plus thing is coming, then there is some kind of a as you could see, the color bar is coming, and there could be, you might have seen it like one of the mornings, the newspaper coming in your home, and you might be surprised what it is like. Should I decode it? I try to decode it for you. And as you could see here, this is a page has to be printed, and it will be cut from some of the edges. So whatever these things, CMYK and this color bar, this gray color, this should be outside what? The outside the cutting edge area. So once you cut it finally, then nothing it will be coming into the print in the final copy of your hand. So these are the referral points. The referral point states, for example, they're like separations, C and YK. So the sign will only come, so sign is written on the C is being colored with a sign color only. Magenta is being written with the magenta color. Yellow is being written in the yellow color. So black in the written the black color. If you have a plate of black in your hand, you will only see the K. You cannot see the CMY because that is a plate of the black. Simply you will, so somebody can have an idea what plate it is. It is like when they are loose, when they are in loose. So in loose means once you are having the 4 plates in your hand, and if I ask you which plate is it, and if this you've not written it this way, it will be very difficult. Although you can always know that, but then the procedure might be a little long. And this plus mark, well, you all call that bullseye as well. This bullseye is about placing them one on the top or the other, because they're like 4 and they become 1. So the 4 are called separation, 1 is called composite. And so first of all, on one paper, the sign will print, then the magenta will print, then the yellow will print, then the black will print, and then you finally get the composite in hand. So in order to get the composite in hand, you should be having those separations being printed one by one, just over the same place. It's not just about the same place. You should be getting them placed maybe like micromillimeters, maybe like the thousands of the millimeters. That accuracy has to be there. Unless that accuracy is not there, you will find some kind of a doubling. So doubling should be avoided. And why this black bar is there? Black bar is there because you could see like this starts from this 100. This might be the 100, and this might be the 10, 20. So you could see like what kind of an intensity is it printing. So the printed machine, the black has to be jet black or probably the complete black, and the gray should be the gray. You watch it from a loop or called the eyeglass, so you could always see that the colors are coming fine. These are the areas to check your red is colored perfectly red, your orange is colored the orange, and so are the other colors. You can always check the colors of the machine are going fine, because if there are problems, that problem will follow everywhere. So you can just check it from, it will be very difficult to know the blue color, but once you know the cyan and the yellows or the magentas, then you can always assume that the color is coming right. So this sheet states a lot. So you probably can add an idea what it is. Cut marks you need to put because you can get a referral, because your press wala should know okay, usko kahan se cut karna hai. So once they have an information coming into the design file itself, then they can get this cut at the right places. So the cut mark has to be given at the time of the design only. So designer doesn't know like when to put a cut mark. So you must understand that the cut marks has to be stated by a line, And if there is a folding, then you can probably give it a dotted line. So these press people will understand that what information are you giving them, from where this cutting has to be done. So once it goes for final cutting and the fabrication, then the cutter will actually place the cut based upon your design or based on the cut marks. And positives and negative, because nowadays positives plates coming directly. So you need to put it. These are called calibration bars. These are for the calibration, right? And this is the registration. So this one is the plus is the registration. This one is registration. Whatever you can see at the corners of it, they are the registration marks. What is this registration marks composed of? The registration color. We know about cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. But a good registration color includes 100% of the cyan, 100% of the magenta, 100% of the yellow, and 100% of the black. The only thing is like black makes everything look black. Black is such a color of the color system that it makes everything black. So, but the registration color might be looking like black, but it is not the typical black. The registration color includes 100% cyan, magenta, yellow, and black, each of those. And those need to be put in for the cutting marks. So the cutting marks might, for example, if I make a plus with this registration mark, then the registration mark will come at the same place in all the plates of cyan, magenta, yellow, and black, and you can match them. You can place them correctly in order to see the job is coming fine. So they should be merged with each other. If there is a left and right coming, it means the doubling is coming. So means your job is not getting printed right. There could be some problem with the machine, or the machine man is not printing it right. You can have an idea, but even without knowing how the machine works, you can be dead sure that your job is coming right or wrong. And then another important thing one has to understand is about the file formats. What does this means by file format? The file formats there could be various kind of a file format. In order to understand and make things easy, I'll actually be dividing the file formats into two categories. One is the file formats we normally use for the web and the broadcast, and one of the file formats that we normally use for the print. So we could know about the GIF file, we know about JPG file. The GIF file and the JPG file are some of the world's most popular files, but they are a big no if it comes to the print. In print, we normally not using the GIF files and the JPG files or PNGs or whatever. So if I have to talk about what is a TIFF file, the TIFF file is an ideal file for printing the images. What? The images. Images means what? Images means they need to be a 24-bit data or 32-bit data. 32-bit data, if I understand this, there are the 4 channels CMYK, and they are like 8-bit per channel. So they become the 32-bit channel as long as the information is 8-bit per channel. So the 32-bit data will be secured into a TIFF file. But the good thing about the TIFF file is it allows for compression file. It's a compression file. But what is the difference between the TIFF and the JPG? We need to understand that where the JPG is also a compressed file, JPG contains the lossy compression. The compression of the JPG is what? It is a lossy compression. So some kind of a data is also used and consumed and compromised before your file becomes smaller in size. But the good thing about the JPG is like it's such a good compression. It can make even the 100 MB file in 100 KBs. TIFF is equally a good compression. The difference between the TIFF and the JPG that the compression of the TIFF is non-lossy kind. So the non-lossy means what? The data will not be lost. So the quality of the image will remains the same, although the file size will become smaller. So if you make any PSD file, then instead of the PSD, you should be creating a TIFF file. The TIFF file will make the file size smaller. It will be easier for you to transfer it online to your service bureau, to the press person. It is easy to send it to the client in order to take an approval or something, and it could be a high quality file. But at the same time, having said that, you must understand the TIFF or the JPGs. JPGs are big no into the press, but the TIFF file is only used for the raster data. Only used for what? The raster data. What is the raster data? The raster data means images your photographic images. The images, those contains the pixels by default. And what contains the pixels by default? Your images contains the pixels by default. And what is not containing the pixel by default is called vectors. Vectors means if anything that you create from Illustrator or from CorelDRAW or from InDesign, they are the vectors ones. So why do we need vectors and raster? Because the vectors are resolution independent of data. So you can scale them easily. They will not lose any kind of an information even before they get scaled up or scaled down. Their quality will remain the same, and the file size will be smaller because there is no data information in terms of the pixels. So they are absolutely devoid of pixels, considering that any kind of an illustration or a logo or a simple illustration or any kind of a small caricature to company identity that you need to create with what? You need to create with vectors, like namely the softwares like Illustrator and CorelDRAW. What are the Illustrator and CorelDRAW? They are 8-bit software. They are the vector software. And what is it the TIFF file should be created from? The TIFF file should be created from the software like Adobe Photoshop. Why they should be created from Photoshop? Because the Photoshop is by default is a 24-bit to 32-bit data kind of a software. If it is 16-bit data information, that would be 64-bit data software. So whatever you will convert, they will become pixelated. So do not make the pixelated. The pixelation is a compulsion. It is not a choice. The choice is 8-bit. I wish the world can be a simpler place if we would have making everything 8-bit. Why? Because there are no resolution fundamentals. The quality will remain high. When the quality remains high, then why we should go to the Photoshop kind of a software? Because the images, if they will be converted to the vector, then it will be too much of a points. Means what? There would be so many nodes, so many points, so many nodes to handle, and your innumerable amount of RAM actually to consume, and those RAMs will be very difficult. So in order to execute a small task, the computer will take a lot of memory in order to execute. So we work onto the images only through Photoshop kind of a software. So we make them pixelated. So once you're making anything pixelated for the press, you will use them TIFF. Anything which is non-pixelated means you're making an illustration or something, make an EPS. And in case if the EPS has to be compared, it has to be compared with what? It can be compared with a GIF file. But the GIF file, the problem is the GIF file is that it's an 8-bit file, and then it loses a lot of data. There's a compression which is happening to the reduction of the color. When like EPS will contain your information, but the file size is bigger. Mind you, EPS is not a it is not a compression at all. It will make this file size bigger at times. It will make a bomb of size in order to make a file be converted into EPS. But EPS is a good choice. And once you're confused between what to make for the EPS and you get confused, you make an EPS. You should be making things simple. Unless you're not very much convinced with which file should I be creating, always make an EPS. Very simple. PDF is the print file. This is the latest version of the press files. It's called PDF. PDF is the future of the print. So PDF means what? Your every data will be converted into the PDF, the good PDF file. PDF files are variable files. You can make a PDF for sending data to your client in order to cross-check it. Those PDFs are small in size. You'll make any PDF, to upload onto the internet. There could be another way things. So not necessary to print. You can put in some kind of security in the file and all. Google understands your the data of the PDF, so that contains some kind of metadata. The metadata is actually searchable data, and then they're like press files, like the print files, and the print files can be saved into the PDF, and they can directly be uploaded onto the machine. The good thing about the PDF is like they will separate the data of the print, so they will save the images as an images, vector as a vector, and the text as a text. That's a wonderful thing that they'll be able to download the font as a font, so the data will not be actually broken into into the vectors. So in case, because if you're making 100 pages magazine, and if you break the data into the vectors, what will happen? There will be like thousands and lakhs of characters. They will be broken down into the points, and then the machine will take a huge amount of time in order to print those files. So they can be avoided and all. So PS and PRN, I'm just skipping for a while. So pre-flighting means what? So what are the things that we need to keep in mind while we getting anything for the print, that the fonts, whether the fonts being downloaded or not. So we make sure that your fonts is being downloaded. So font can be of multiple types. The fonts might be like, they could be two type fonts. They are the Windows fonts normally are. And then once upon a time, we used to have a Macintosh font. It used to be called a suitcase fonts. There could be another way of fonts nowadays, which is most popular. That's called open type font, OTF. The open type fonts are the cross-platform font. They are the hybrid font. They work on the Mac OS and to the Windows, and they are the most popular ones, and they need to be taken care. But the good thing is about, you should make sure that every font is being designed in a way so they can easily print onto the machine. They should be PostScript compatible font. So even the Adobe has a foundry of Adobe type manager kind of a font. So they are the PostScript kind of a font. So they downloads on the machine very fast. Why they download very fast? Because they are the PostScript. So they changes the information from visual elements to the code. So it is very easy to print them fast, because then they'll be decoded from a code to the visual element back. And so the fonts has to be cross-checked. Images, you must understand, the images has to be high resolution. A high resolution image should be around 300 dots per inch, and you should not be scaling your images much, because once you scale them up, and once you scale them up means what? You will be compromising with the smaller pixel, which are manually enlarging. So once you manually enlarge them, those pixels becomes more visible, and in order to because anything which is which eyes can understand and read, then it will be difficult for you actually to see that the image quality might be compromised. Now, you should always make sure that your images should be CMYK in nature. RGBs and CMYKs. Why? Because the CMYK, because you cannot get, the RGBs are normally the primary colors. You must understand. They are the color of the nature. For example, you are seeing me and I can see you in this medium right now I'm onto, only through an RGB. Because these are the electronic device, or in the nature, we work with more of lighting methods, but the printing is not being done that way. The printing is being done by some kind of a dye or chemical which is called ink. So once there's an ink is a soluble form. It contains some kind of water, and so the water thing has a problem of oxidation. So the oxidation will then come into the colors and the dyes. And what will that lead to? That will lead to the dulling of the colors. So normally the CMYK are the dull colors, and the RGBs are the more natural, for that matter. They are more fluorescent, they are more intense in nature. So the RGB is choice. The CMYK is not a choice. CMYK is a compulsion. The only thing is like the CMYK has to be done, because once you contain those lights into the dyes, once you can convert them from one form to the another one, some kind of a subtraction of the ink happen. So why the RGBs are 3, the CMYKs are 4? It cannot be the case. Any inversion of the 3 should also be -3, but it cannot be 4. So once you invert the RGB, and then they become CMY as such, and CMY means cyan, magenta, yellow, and then they happens from what? They happens from the crossing over of the RGB, but then the fourth color which is being introduced as a CMYK is a color model. It's an artificial color model. The color model has been introduced considering that the world's most number of jobs happens in the black color. So otherwise, if you consider from CMY, the black color ink should be created with the mixing of the CMY. So it will be extra amount, and then to type a small letter, you have to print 3 inks. So what they have done, the scientists have done one, in order to create a model, they bring a fourth color artificially. It's called K. K stands for black. So the black color comes in, and so your economy becomes better, because instead of printing anything with 3 color, you can just print it with 1 color. So it's saving. That's one of the things. Once you print it from the 1 color, you can even print it onto the very, a very rough paper, very low quality paper. So there could be some kind of a saving as well, like a newspaper, because a newspaper has to be accessible by the masses. and every government gives some kind of subsidy onto the paper of newsprint. Why? Because that keeps the the costing down, so the most of the people can afford to that paper and all. So that's the thing. So and always a choice, like they can run it to the black color, because if you printed 3-4 color, the paper might be soaked, and this whole problem may contain. And you must understand the newsprint, you're not printing onto one side, you print it onto the 2 times, I mean the front and back both. So the black color is a wonderful color in order to bring in separately into the CMY, as it will be called CMYK. So that's how we print them through. Why? Because we cannot accumulate the lights onto the paper. That has to be converted onto the ink. So that's the reason. District to PDF means you need to cross check your PDF. The PDF should be the one that shows that if everything is fine in the PDF, it should be fine into the final print. So the PDF is a kind of a print file. So once anything which is not distilled into the PDF, it is your artwork. So the CorelDRAW file, Photoshop file might probably not be the right thing to check. Always convert it into PDF. If the PDF gives you the right information, means your final file going to be the same as looks the PDF. Separation check has to be done. Separation check has to be done carefully, so all the information is coming in the right color. The black should come in the black color. If the black is not coming to is rather coming to the other plate, means there could be a problem. Overprints and traps to be done. Overprints means something which should be multiplied into the color. So normally the black colors are the overprint color, so they can only print into the black colors, and any other color has to be trapped. And so what are the key things to keep in mind? That the selection of the software has to be right. You should, as I told you, that you should be using CorelDRAW, Illustrator, for not the Photoshop, in order to create your print file. InDesign could be the best program because it could be the ultimate program. Resolution has to be high, and your output medium has to be like with respect to what you are printing. And if you're printing it on the papers, you should be getting the right information done. Always use CMYK, never use RGBs. Metallic color are the colors which are in addition to the CMYK. You cannot get the metallic colors into the CMYK. So they are the special color. They call also called the spot colors. The spot colors are what? They are, if anything is not spot color, what it is? They are the process color. What is process color? CMYK are the process color. And what is spot color? In addition to any process color is called the spot color. The spot color are in addition, means like what? The metallic colors, because you cannot get the metallic colors easy. But you could have seen a lot of book covers under the golden, silver, chrome, and other kind of a color, copper and all. So how they comes into the place? They are the additional inks. You have to run that ink. That inks being done manually. The person creates some kind of a different kind of a glitter material, metallic material, in order to make those inks. So they are not the process color. The screen ruling should be such like what kind of a paper are you printing upon. So the screen always keeps the simple fundamental. You can keep the 72 dots per inch and you can just print them. But if it comes to the if it comes to the print, then the printing is being done onto different kinds of paper stock. You probably printing out of the lowest quality paper stock is a newsprint, and then you got magazine paper, then you got art paper, then there's a thicker paper is called art card. So normally the best books and the covers that comes into the art card, it's wonderful to touch them, to see them, and to appreciate the quality and to the images things. So we at times love to go through good magazines because we love to go through them because the images are so wonderful. And why? Because the paper is good, so you can print more amount of ink onto that. Those smaller dots can come in place, and then you can get the best of the output done. And like the problem with these smaller, even if you wish that the best thing can come, but the smaller is the size of the pixel, the more amount of ink to be supplemented, and that is how the more color will be printed. And if you print in more color, then it can all soak. So you cannot do that. So the screen rulings are important because the papers are not same. So you would be putting different kind of screen ruling in place. So quality of the paper is one of the things. Quantity of the print run, you must understand. anything which is more in numbers will bring the cost of the job a little small. I mean, it could be more economical in nature. Forms making, how to make the forms, because you just cannot. They're the bigger sizes. So once you have the bigger sizes, you can put more things into this thing. So I hope in order to see that create anything to be done, you decide the layout, design the job, make a good print file, check the print file, and finally send it to the press. So these are some of the things you should be keeping in mind. I hope with respect to the time that I have, I try to summarize it in the best manner. And this is just a primary class, so that probably makes you acquainted with the concept of the pre-press. I wish that you would have liked the session. If you have any queries or anything that you want to ask, you can always write into the comment box, and I probably like to answer.
Thank you so much, sir. It was really a fruitful session, full of information.
All right.
Really covered a lot of things about the pre-press, because when we talk about designing, like as a layman, what I understand is graphic designing means just designing. But then, yes, that printing, when it has to go through that pre-press points that you have mentioned today, they're really very, very informative.
I hope you understood. As long as you understanding, the other graphic design students or the stakeholders of this, they will also be knowing about it. So I wish I can share more and more information about the pre-press and the areas considering to this. So if the students want me to engage for more things, I would definitely be here and to give them.
Sure, sir, certainly. And yes, guys, you need to register, join MECAT to get the best of the scholarship and best of the admissions in the best of the institutions. Premium institutions are waiting for you. So go through MECAT registration, join, and yes, stay connected with us for upcoming sessions and webinars. As this one was for pre-press, tomorrow we have another session with TGC, and I'd really like to tell you about the same. It's happening with Mrs. Krishna Sharma. She's a graphic and 3D animation mentor, and she'll be conducting a workshop on creative thinking. Because yes, designing is an art, but what to design is also very important. You cannot design anything without thinking. So creative thinking is really a very important subject, and she's gonna tell, is everyone creative or no? So let's hear it from her tomorrow morning, 11:30 a.m. Till then, take care of yourself, stay safe, stay connected, and get prepared for Media and Entertainment Creative Aptitude Test. With this, I'd like to thank Ranjan sir. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure meeting you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Same here.
Thank you, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow, 11:30. Bye-bye.